Hello, Phil Burrell from ProCam. Thoughts are now turning to first fertiliser doses on winter cereals. The key thing to remember with all cereal crops, both wheat and barley, is that the yield is driven by three things: the number of ears per square metre, the number of grains per ear, and the size of the grain. At this point in time, up to around growth stage 30, we're in that foundation stage. So this is when we can really impact that number of ears per square metre. In other words, building biomass. Biomass generally drives yield. Now, thankfully, in a lot of situations this year, due to earlier drilling and good establishment in the autumn, we have crops that have a decent amount of biomass above ground. They will need feeding. If it turns dry, like it did last spring and all the previous springs, so particularly if you're in the east, then once we lose tillers, we don't get them back. In the west, you have to mitigate nitrogen applications versus a potential increased risk of disease, particularly septoria. However, biomass drives yield. We must remember that. What is absolutely critical is that you make a plan with your agronomist based on your individual circumstances. I can sit here and stand here and give any advice I like, but I don't know your situation, only you do. What I would say though is I get more phone calls where people haven't put enough nitrogen on than where they wish they'd tailored it back, particularly on that first dose, because that first 100 kilos is the most important that we put on. Don't forget sulphur, and don't forget things like phosphate at this time. The peak demand for wheat for phosphate is during stem extension. So if it's limited at this point, again, we need to do something about it. So if you are applying P and K fertilisers, don't forget to apply them now. So something like a nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, sulphur compound, or blend, or liquid, would actually tick the box really well for what the crop needs. Key thing is, make your plan with your agronomist, and don't get it wrong at this stage, because we can't undo the mistakes later on.